Today, I'm going to show you how you can use a centralized source of truth called a context foundation, so you never have to solve the same problems twice in your go-to-market work. We talk about the problem, the technical solution, and what we're calling it, and the outcomes. How much time do you think you spend context switching? From taking a deep research report from ChatGPT and then copying and pasting it into your Notion so you can analyze it, so you can use it to inform a new campaign strategy, or copying campaign results into ChatGPT, and on and on and on and on, right? You're constantly moving context around from different tools. And the worst part is that you eventually hit a context window in that chat and you have to start all over. You're constantly solving the same problems and constantly setting up the same context over and over again. This is the wrong way to use AI. This is also how you get slop, because you can never actually benefit from the collective, all your previous attempts to solve a problem. Let's talk about the right way. The right way is you never have to solve the same problem twice, because you're working from a centralized source of truth. You have a centralized context foundation that we're calling a compounding intelligence asset, because it becomes more valuable over time, and it is tuned tighter and tighter to your specific intelligence and taste. And on top of that, we'll talk a little bit about how this thing is actually technically architected, but all your tools and workflows and agentic workflows can always work from this. So whether you are manually using a new chat window to iterate on your brand strategy, or you have a workflow set up to automatically process call transcripts and pull out useful intelligent bits, they're always working with the same source of truth, and those new intelligence points from those call transcripts are fed back into that context architecture. So these are systems I've been deploying with clients already. They're very fun to build, and the outcomes we're seeing are pretty incredible. The general multiplier a client has seen is anywhere between 10 to 30x iteration tempo, because you no longer have to do any of that context switching, and you also get the benefit of all of that new leverage, having it be all in the same place. So we're going to talk a little bit about the technical architecture, how the system works, the key leverage points in it, and who this is for. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so first, let's define context. In the context of go-to-market, context all it means is your ICPs, your personas, your brand tone of voice, everything that you and your business spin off that relates to marketing, sales, go-to-market, right? Right now, what happens is that all of these pieces, or you can call them artifacts, all these artifacts are siloed. Your ICP definition is in someone's Notion. A deep research report on your market is in someone's ChatGPT. In the most recent analysis on your campaign report, on your campaign performance, is in someone's SmartBeat. All of these are in their own separate spaces. That's what's called a context silo. So you could think data silo, context silo. And these aren't super apparent issues because we've actually been living like this or working like this for a while. It's only since we've started using AI and trying to be like, oh man, I wish I could pull in these emails to ChatGPT or whatever that feeling is, has that pain point become more acute. It's only become more and more acute as we use agents to do more and more work to give us more and more leverage. So a context foundation solves this problem. It takes all that scattered context and turns it into a single living source of truth. It does this in 3 ways. First, it's just a simple markdown-based file system that is Git versioned. Second, it is semantically linked to one another, so you get a knowledge graph. And third, it is organized by front matter. So rather than keep this abstract, I'm going to show you an example of one. Okay, so this knowledge graph is about a single Steve Jobs quote that I'll play right now.
Ultimately, it comes down to taste. It comes down to taste. It comes down to trying to expose yourself to the best things that humans have done, and then try to bring those things in to what you're doing.
You can see it's very short, right? So how did we get all of this information from a single graph? Well, I used Cloud Code to assemble this. Let me get into the way this thing actually works. there are two things here. There's the taxonomy, which is how you name stuff, and the ontology, which is how you group stuff. On the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see how we group stuff by origin figures, principles. So basically, people, places, ideas, right? And then how we name stuff, that's where we get the front matter. So I'll show you that. So this is what front matter is. It's very simple, right? Name, description, color coding for a nice pretty graph. This is the taxonomy, or part of it. And then the other part of it is in relating these ideas together using simple wiki links. So you use cloud code to assemble the graph to say, hey, this is how things semantically, right? Actually, not semantically, contextually relate to one another. And if we click through the graph, you can see here that everything is connected to everything in an intelligently designed way. So let me get out this placeholder so you can see. If we go back to the core of it, right, there's a single quote here. And everything supports tracing Jobs' lineage and how he came up to that point, and that point of view, I guess you'd say. So why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because imagine this tooled for your entire company context, organized not by people and moments and influences, but by company transcript or call transcripts, your company brand, tone of voice, every single piece of content you put out, all those artifacts, all of that context. And imagine how powerful that could be. Because the key is not just getting information in and storing it in a nice, useful way, right? It's also getting information out and synthesizing insight from that graph. So I had an example here. Why can competitors match the iPhone? It's a pretty contextually deep question. And I wanted to show it because with the right prompt, this agent will do something called agentic search, where it'll create a little list, it'll read, it'll grep, which is like keyword searching, and it'll go through its whole process to search across the graph to then synthesize an answer that moves across, the Zen Buddhism node, which is over here somewhere, and the Bauhaus node, right? Synthesizing all of this really deep context into a condensed but coherent answer, right? This is the anti-slop use of AI. So why is this important? This completely eliminates context silos, and it creates a living source of truth that you can iterate on. In fact, not just you, but your whole team can iterate on. And off of that, you can build agentic workflows or regular workflows that make use of the graph. So let me show you some examples of that. So to make it tangible, I have kind of spec'd out two workflows that I built right now. I'm building context foundations for companies right now, and these are the two most common workflows that I see create the most value. Number one is basically building out a kind of intelligence flow, where you have your graph pull in up-to-date information on your ICPs, your value prop, your messaging, and figure out, hey, we want to figure out this information because we want to niche down our market, for example, right? We want to segment better. For every single call prep, right? It generates a little contact card. This is the information we need to make an informed decision on what part of the market to segment, right? It's not going to say that in the contact card, but that is the informed decision-making loop going on. You get the transcript, and then out of that, because you have that in your context foundation, right? It's synced up. It knows to synthesize that into, a short form. Yeah, there you go. Insight, and put that back in the context foundation. Obviously, you read manually yourself, and then the whole transcript gets pushed up into a database, right? But it's classified, it's scored, and organized appropriately. And then you can sync that to your CRM if you want. So you can get a similar workflow with content, actually. You go monitor, a short list of newsletters and influencers and RSS feeds, and use your perspective that's distilled down in that graph to classify that content as relevant, and then use it to understand, to generate a brief that reflects your point of view, right? And then you can use that to go create that end content in a way that is the anti-slop, right? I want to use that word again. The idea here is to amplify your taste, right? At least for this content brief one. So it augments your ability to lift, kind of is like lifting you up above the mental groundwork of organizing articles and other stuff like that. But I think the core part of all of these is that it's increasing your iteration tempo. The way to think about it, melting these context silos by getting everything into a centralized knowledge graph increases your iteration tempo. So what that does is that decreases your time to market for a new campaign, your time to market for new product positioning, your time to market even for features, because you can take all of that context in the graph and use it to feed, and inform a feature spec for your Next.js app, whatever, right? Um, and the secondary effect is that you get a compounding intelligence asset. So over time, as the graph evolves and iterates, because you've Git versioned it or it's stored on Git, right? You can see of the whole chain of changes. Yeah, um, it becomes tighter and tighter conformed to your actual business, and allows you to say things and have a perspective that only you can say because only you have this unique context. It creates a moat, um, and then the other kind of downstream effect is around team empowerment and visibility. Since everyone is working from the same centralized source of truth, you have to spend less time around the logistics of alignment. So sending back messages and all that fun stuff of emails and that mess of just the current tech stack. You're working from the same centralized source of truth, and everyone has higher visibility because you can basically amplify your point of view and say, hey, what's going on in the call transcripts, and it's already been classified in a way that's relevant to what you care about, and then you can use Cloud Code to go and query against it, right? So it kind of decreases the cost of leverage, because right now with agents you have to make a decision between how much leverage am I going to get uh, to the cost of how much visibility. This is a way to get all the leverage and minimize the loss of visibility. So who is this for? The honest answer is I'm not totally sure who this is for, because it's such a foundational problem. It solves a lot of problems at once. But I can tell you about the general type of company that is benefiting from this right now and why they're benefiting from it. Generally, B2B SaaS startups, so kind of growth stage, have we'll call it a top 5 bottleneck around operationalizing their customer intelligence. Um, what this really means is, going back to the start of the video, you were solving the same problems over and over again. You're taking a call transcript and you're throwing it into ChatGPT to get a debrief. Um, this system does that automatically and scales your ability to actually, generate insight from that, not just process the data points around it, to actually create a weekly recurring, insight intelligence loop from that. Um, so there's that side of it, the call intelligence, and then the content side. So kind of ingestion and then actually putting it back out into the world. Um, so if that's you, and you kind of have this operational bottleneck, you were solving the same problems over and over again, feel free to reach out. I'm doing 1 month proof of concepts where I take my proprietary kind of approach I've developed for creating these context foundations, and we'll deploy it for your specific company or your company specific context. That's what I was looking for. Um, and if that's not you, but you are just as obsessively interested in context engineering as I am, uh, I would love for you to reach out as well. It's a really fun time to be building, and I'm happy to share learnings, thoughts, resources. But yeah, that's it. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.